Thank you to these sponsors of the Before I Die New Mexico Virtual Festival in 2020. A Good Goodbye, Gail Rubin puts the fun in funeral planning. After, a new way to stay connected with your loved ones in the cemetery anytime and anywhere. Aquamationinfo.com, where you can learn about alkaline hydrolysis, an eco-friendly alternative to flame cremation. Compassion and Choices, offering care and choice at the end of life. Daniel's Family Funerals and Cremations and Gabaldon Mortuary in Albuquerque. Fairview Memorial Park and Vista Verde Memorial Park in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho. Avista Cremation and Burial in Santa Fe. DeVargas Funeral Home and Crematory in Espanola and in Taos. Estate Pros, which offers personal dispersal of possessions due to a move, illness, or death. French Funerals and Cremations and Sunset Memorial Park in Albuquerque. And Keeper, which helps you keep memories alive with online tributes to preserve, celebrate, and share life legacies.
Death is full of surprises, huh?
You have no idea.
Yes, that is me, Gail Rubin, the doyen of death, your coordinator of the Before I Die New Mexico Virtual Festival. Thank you for being here today. Very excited and happy to have Mandy Benoualid, who is the president of Keeper, to give us insights into planning a virtual memorial service. Unfortunately, the reason we're having this festival online is because of COVID. And Mandy's family actually had a death because of COVID, and were able to brilliantly address the issue of how to have a meaningful, memorable memorial service for her grandmother. And she's going to tell us all about that. If you have questions over the course of her presentation, feel free to type in the chat box. We will be monitoring and sharing those questions with Mandy. And with that, Mandy, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail. Thanks to all of you who are joining today on this pre-Halloween day. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited for Halloween tomorrow. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So thank you all so much again for joining. As Gail mentioned, my name's Mandy. I am the president of Keeper Memorials, and I'm also the editor of TalkDeath.com. And TalkDeath.com is a death positive media site where we write many, different insightful articles and resources all around death and dying. So if you're interested in that subject, please do check us out there. And I do want to let you all know right away in the chat, you will actually see a link so that you can download a PDF guide to what we are going to talk about today. So don't feel like you need to be scribbling notes really quickly. We really did lay it out step by step in a PDF for you. And it's a free download. We just found the easiest way to send it to you is via email. So don't worry, we're not going to start spamming your email. You can get the email and then unsubscribe. I don't even think we'll be using the list for anything else, but just letting you know that in advance. So yeah, welcome to this talk about how to hold a virtual memorial service. And I personally hope that none of you are in an actual situation where you do need to plan this right now for a loved one. I hope that's not the case. If it is, or maybe you work with families as an end-of-life practitioner, or maybe you have a good friend that is going through this and you want to be able to step in and help them. The goal for today is really to help you, as it says, step by step on how to hold a service like this. And you'll also notice that what I'm talking about is just one of many formats that you can follow. So if you want to sway from it, if you have other ideas, if there's a tool you like better, please go ahead as Gail mentioned, I'm going to be speaking from experience as well. So to get started, I thought I would just give you a quick background for myself and for Keeper so that you sort of understand where I'm coming from in this space. So I started Keeper in 2013, really just a very organic moment where I was in a cemetery visiting my grandfather, and I came across a columbarium, which is like a glass front space that has urns in it, and people will often put keepsakes. And there was a blank CD, one of those that you'd burn in the 90s to make a mix CD. And it just said Dad's work written on it, or Dad's files. And first of all, it's so strange to see that type of a document or that type of a media file rather in an actual cemetery. So I did what most of us do. I took out my phone and I tried to Google the person's name and figure out what could possibly be on the contents of that CD. Of course, I couldn't find anything. And so it made me realize, which of course I knew this before, but it really solidified the fact that every life really has a story. We all, go through our lives, hopefully for at least 70 years, and there's a lot of life to tell, lots of stories to tell. So the thought was really, what if you could walk around a cemetery and learn about every single person there? So everything I've done in my work, even actually before this, I used to work in documentary and in radio. It was always about telling stories. And so I wanted to share that with you today because the reason why we hold memorial services is, of course, a major part of it is to help families through the grieving process, but it's also to celebrate and talk about that story and to make sure that it doesn't ever fade away and that it always stays fresh in our hearts and in our minds and in the minds of our loved ones. And so just really quick about what we actually do at Keeper. So we're an online memorial platform. What that means is you can go online, you can create a memorial page for someone that's passed away, but you can actually even start creating your own memorial page or your own living memorial or legacy before you pass away. So you can start taking all your photographs and your favorite memories and all the important moments in your life, and you could actually store it in our solution, and it would only be published by a loved one of yours once you pass away. So these were all of our goals, is to create a meaningful space for families, to help families with the grieving process, and to spark curiosity. So going back to what I was talking about, where you could just walk in a cemetery and learn about all these lives. So now to talk about the subject at hand. We've been in this pandemic for a lot longer than I think anyone was thinking we would be. And we found that this quote was particularly poignant to talk about the effect that it can really have on families, on your mental health. So let's just read it out loud here together. Death from COVID-19 is often sudden and unexpected. Restrictions have changed the experience of dying. Adding to the burden of not being with a dying loved one is the unprecedented disruption of cultural and religious rituals. Mourners and their supportive community must find new ways to observe these rituals. There is a pressing need to implement measures that might lessen the adverse consequences of COVID-19 era bereavement. So this was published in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry. And this is Dr. Geoves and Dr. Shear that wrote about this from Columbia University and Medical College of Wisconsin. And so the idea, and this paper really does go on to say that for some, the burden of this pandemic may be too much. And among other mental health problems, we will likely see an increase in prolonged grief disorder. And this is especially among older persons. So imagine you live, you're alone at home with perhaps a spouse and your spouse passes away. This actually happened to one of our employees as well, where their father passed away and the mom now lives at home alone. So just think about how, without being able to be with your family, just think about how much of a negative effect that can have on a person's mental health and how it can be really prolonged. So I wanted to bring this up because, of course, as a professional in the end of life space, making people realize, or just having it come to the surface about how detrimental prolonged grief, or just how much it can impact someone. And I don't want us to take that for granted at all. And at the same time, as I'm also speaking, as Gail mentioned, someone who went through this herself. So in April of this year, so sort of right at the beginning of all of this, my grandmother actually fell in her assisted living facility. So she wasn't in a nursing home. She was perfectly healthy, of course, besides some minor, health issues that she had. And so she fell and was taken to the hospital for physical trauma. And because she was in the hospital, they tested her for COVID and it came out positive. And it's actually possible now, the doctors were thinking that she may have just been dizzy from actually having the virus, that that's maybe perhaps why she fell. And so it's almost a blessing that we found that happened, because they found out sooner rather than later that she had it. But regardless, she was on oxygen. And honestly, it was only a few days later, her oxygen levels were so low and they were having to give her more and more oxygen that the doctor said that she wouldn't be able to survive unless she was on oxygen for the rest of her life. So we took her off the oxygen, and we were actually all together on a private Zoom meeting, and we were with her when they took off the oxygen, and we were talking to her and telling her we loved her. And it was a beautiful moment. It was a sad moment, but I'm really happy that we were able to be with her in that way. So all to say that, we're a family that's very close, and when someone passes away in our culture, we gather right away. We have a funeral service right away. And so we knew that we had to do something. She was such an important person in all of our lives. So what we did is, myself and my cousins, so all, the children, all the grandchildren got together, and we put together an online memorial service for her. And it just was such a wonderful event to have been part of. And it meant so much to my mom and to my uncles and aunts and to all the family that attended, that I just started honestly writing about this subject. Because I had a friend who actually went through a similar situation, and I started just helping people on how to do this. And I said, you know what, I need to write about this and talk to more people about it, because it's affecting, of course, more and more people every day. So on to what we're going to cover today. So we're really going to cover step by step on how to hold a service. I'm going to talk you through the steps, and I put the steps in a particular order. And that order, again, is all listed properly in that document that you can always download, but you can keep them in mind. So we're going to talk about a few things from the tools and the solution and the technology you can use, but also how to designate proper roles and make sure that you're just organized so that it doesn't become more stressful, right? And again, this is just one template of some of the countless options that you can use when organizing a memorial service. So step one is to choose a date and time. And again, some of these might seem oversimplified, but when you're in a state of grief and there's a million things going on, having a list like this, trust me, is going to be very helpful. So just like any funeral service, I don't want you to be worrying about accommodating everyone's schedules, okay? Some of our immediate family, in our case, worked in hospitals, so we made sure to accommodate their schedules because they're first responders. But everyone else right now is hopefully in isolation and staying home. So finding a date and time that works with your immediate family, with the children or the siblings, the spouse, the immediate family that absolutely needs to be there. Don't worry about anyone else. They will show up. And also, I have to say, the benefit, and we'll talk about this, of doing this online is that if someone really can't attend, they can watch it afterwards, okay? If you do have a larger set of immediate family, what I would like to say is you can use a tool called Doodle. Just go to doodle.com, not Google, Doodle with a D like David. And you can put in some availabilities and then you just send that to everyone by text or by phone and they can check off what times work for them. And then you can find a time that works for everybody. Okay. But if not, like I mentioned, just quickly text your family, the immediate family that needs to know. What I would say is if possible, schedule it at least 3 to 5 days in advance. And I'm sure for most of you that will be perfectly acceptable. Some cultures and communities, the service has to happen really quickly. But because this is going to be a service where the body's not going to be present, doing this a few days later should be no problem at all. So I say 3 to 5 days because there is some planning involved. You also want to make sure that people put it in their schedules, and you also don't want to stress out too much while doing this. In terms of the actual time, if you're doing it during the week, we hosted it at 5:30, as it says there, 5:30 Eastern. And we did that because the majority of our family is on the East Coast. So that means everyone's just off work. But that also means that attendees on the West Coast, it's still a decent time. They could even maybe take their lunch break for work around that time. And if you're doing this on the weekend or even during the week and you have family, or also sort of like we did where we have family in Europe and the West Coast and the East Coast, that's what we put in the tip on the bottom there is noon Eastern is also good because if it's during the week, people on the East Coast are on lunch. It's 9 a.m. for the Pacific time zone. And in Europe, it's not too late. So you just have to play with time zones a bit if you have that issue. And of course, if it's the weekend, hopefully any time should be more than sufficient. So again, don't stress too much about this, but do be strategic about it because you don't want to send out an invite and then have to change the time and then add more communication. And just a reminder, if you have any questions based on what I'm saying, make sure to put it in the chat or in the Q&A, okay? Step 2 is allocating roles. Can you do this yourself? Of course you can. You're Superman or Superwoman. I'm sure you could do this all on your own. However, there's always I always suggest inviting other people to help you. And what we did in my situation is we had the cousins get together. We were about 6 of us. Not everyone had a role, but we all got together. We all brainstormed a bit what we wanted the service to look like. And then we talked about everyone's availability and everyone's specialty. And then we decided who would take care of what. And it's important to assign roles because if not, people don't know what they should be doing. And if you allocate them a role, they're basically gonna know their job. It's just like, the reason why we have job positions is that it just keeps everything more organized and you know that you can rely on someone for a particular item. So here are the roles that you can use. So the host. The host would be the person that is the host of the service, the person that will welcome everyone to the service and that kind of runs the order of the show. So it may be sort of the main person who's organizing it in this case. They also would be sending the event invitation and the host would kind of be taking care of a lot of the RSVPs and making sure that people can attend because most of their work is only going to be at the moment or on the day of the service. So using them to be like the main inviter and coordinator is helpful. They would prepare the order of service, so who's speaking when, and they would prepare an introduction, of course, to the service. It could be very brief. It doesn't even have to be written down, a simple welcome, and we'll go through that as well together. The speakers and writers, we put those kind of grouped together because they're often the same person. Sometimes you may have a really great writer in your family, but they absolutely don't want to speak. So you could have different speakers and writers. But what I would most likely suggest is, especially if you're the organizer, you kind of know who's really good at speaking and at who's writing. So there are nice ways where you can suggest the people that should do it and make sure that they're comfortable. And I would say that you should have at least 2 speakers to speak during the actual service, because if not, it might be too short and you don't want, like a 10-minute service. You want to try to get like in the nice half hour, 45-minute mark. Then you have the tech person. So the tech person would be, of course, is really key in this situation. They're going to decide what tools you should be using. They're also going to create and schedule the video conferencing meeting in that app. So for example, if you're using Zoom, they would go into the Zoom account, schedule the time, and send that out. They would also be that point person for anyone who might be less comfortable with technology, and they can do some run-throughs beforehand with anyone, with any family members that are not as comfortable. And then they would also be the ones running sort of the test run that we're going to talk about afterwards as well. So these are all the things that have to be done before the service itself. And then during the service, the host is the one that's going to welcome everyone. They're going to give, that housekeeping message of please stay on mute unless we unmute you, those types of things. They're going to really guide the service, and they're going to guide, who speaks when by introducing all the speakers. And that way, that your speakers and everyone doesn't have to worry that much. They know that their cue is when you give it to them. And they're also going to be the one that says thank you and sort of closes off the whole call at the same time. The speakers obviously are the ones that are going to be presenting the eulogies or the speeches. And we left some tips for speakers. Basically, just pretend that you're talking to someone. You're just on your computer. You don't have to worry too much. You can have your notes in front of you. You could even have your notes on the computer that you're talking to. Just take a breath and pause. And I need to do that. Even just doing this, I have to be like, take a breath and pause. So it's all part of it. But what I find nice about virtual memorial services is that, like, for example, in my case, I have a cousin who's really shy, but she was also really close with my grandma. And I feel like she would have never gone up at the actual funeral to speak, but because she was behind the camera at home, she did it, and it was wonderful, and she felt way more comfortable doing that. So for some cases, it's a nice way to get individuals out of their shell. During the service, the tech person would be considered they would be the host or the manager of the video conferencing service. So again, we're typically using some Zoom terms here where they're hosting it. And you want to do that because they are going to be muting and unmuting people. You want them to kind of just be in the background, making sure everything's working properly, because the last thing you want is for the speaker to be in charge of that, or the host, and they're in the middle of giving a speech and then someone unmutes themselves and it won't work very well. So at least try to have one person who's kind of managing that stuff in the background. And something that we'll talk about is they would also be responsible for running any slideshows or videos. So step 3 is an optional step. And obviously, as the president of a company that does this, we of course chose to use an online memorial service. So you'll see, and I'll show you on the next few slides, that we're just one tool that's available online today. So we chose to use Keeper because you can use it as a collaborative tool for families, and I'll show you that in more detail. But you can also use it to create an event so that the service details can all be there and you can invite people. So, if you have someone in your family that's like really into web design and wants to create like a quick little website, you can do that. A little blog post. There's so many different options online today if that's something that you'd like. But all this to say, step 3 is really optional. If you just want to use email, then that's completely an option as well, okay? So on the online memorial pages themselves, and a lot of the features I'm talking about, of course, they're available on Keeper, but they're also available on many other memorial sites that are available today. So why we really liked this is it was one central place where we could write the obituary or the biography, because we were a large, not even that large of a family, but a large enough of a family that having everyone share their photos in one simple place can be a challenge. So we used it as a way for everyone to share their images and videos together. So they were all in a central place. And then you'll see we used all of those for a slideshow after. On top of that, it's a great way for family and friends to send condolences to the family and also to share their memories. And again, why I like this is that because it's online, it means that if people can't attend the service, they could just go to this page and still be involved in some way. They can still share their message of condolence. They can still share their memories and express themselves during this time if they couldn't be there. Another thing that we did is it's a safe, secure place where you could actually just put the video of the memorial service after it happened. Again, that's something we did. And because the page was created, and this is why I'm putting this in step 3, is the page was created before the service. So all we had to do is share the URL to the memorial page during the Zoom meeting. And then everyone could click on it if they said, oh, I forgot to add this image, or, oh, I need to send it to this person so that they can watch the video after. It just makes it easy to have it all there and ready. Because after the memorial service, everything, really would be just a text or email. So again, this is making your communication centralized and easy. And then, of course, making these memories available for generations to come, especially if you maybe have a young child who didn't know grandma very well, and you'd like them to be able to find those pictures and look at them later on. Using a service like this really helps, instead of maybe trying to rummage through the attic to find that box of pictures. And then something else to touch on is the final resting place. So maybe your loved one is being interred in a cemetery, and people want to go visit. Most cemeteries are still open right now, but even in the future, if the one that you currently live by is not open, in the future they will be open, and then they can find easily the final resting place location, so where the grave is actually located, and then they can find their way there. Next, is the event pages. And so Innkeeper in particular, and a few other sites, you can actually connect the event page directly to the memorial page. So what we did is we added the name, date, time of the service itself. In the little, the description box here, we put any information for individuals just to say, this is what we're doing, this is what's happening at this time. And you'll see there's a few other items that we added in there that was helpful. What's nice, there's actually a few really helpful things. You can put a direct link to the video conference right here. So in this case, in this example, sorry if this is showing up, but under the address, we put the event link. So of course, if there's no physical address, you just wouldn't include that, and you would just include an event link so that when the user clicks on that, it would simply just open up the Zoom, the Google Hangouts, whatever you are using. This is also a way that you can send the invites, right? You need to get these, you need to tell people where and when to go. And of course you can send, 100 text messages, but sometimes sending it in bulk is much easier. So, it's something that you can share on social media if you'd like. You can share it via email. You can copy the link and text it to people. And then people can RSVP. So there you would have a guest list where people can confirm if they can come. And what's nice is with this, or with using any kind of guest list, is that you can take a look at who confirmed that they can be there or not. And if you notice that there's that one friend, that one family member that wants to be there and should be there, and they didn't RSVP, maybe they didn't get the invite. So it's a good way for you just to quickly look back before the service and make sure that everyone that should be there is already on the list. And if you are more comfortable, or you and your family use Facebook more, I would definitely recommend even just creating an event page in Facebook if you prefer. And you can create an event in Facebook, and you can make it public or private. I assume you may want to make it private for this type of an event. If you do make it private, The only thing to keep in mind is that only people with Facebook will be able to actually see the private event. So if you're doing an event on Facebook, but many of your invitees do not have Facebook, then it might not be the right solution for you. But if you make the event public, then it's no problem. So just keep that in mind. But Facebook is obviously a super easy tool to use where you can store the event details and people can ask questions, do all of that great stuff. I think I'm talking and not pausing enough. Now, number 4, this one I'm sure you're all waiting for, is what tool should we use to do this? So we laid out 3. Of course, don't worry, you'll see Zoom in the next slide. But we wanted to talk to you about some other free options that are common as well to use. So first of all, actually, if you're in a business and maybe your business uses Blue Jeans or GoToMeeting or something like that, and if you can use one of those, then great. But what we're showing here are more sort of commercially available ones for individuals. So Skype is one that I find a lot of people don't consider anymore, but Skype is still a really good solution. You can have up to 50 people, you can screen share, you can do the background blur. People can access it on the web or on a mobile app. There's no meeting time. It's an unlimited meeting time. So unlike some others that stop you at 40 minutes, this one doesn't have it. So Skype might actually be good. The only con that we wanted to list for you is on the free plan, you can only have 50 attendees. So that might be more than enough for you, or that might not be enough. So that's something to consider. Then we have Google Meet. So a lot of people have Gmail today. And so if they have Gmail, Google Meet is actually really, really easy. What's good is that you can have up to 100 people instead of 50 like Skype. And then you can do all of those same things. You can record it, you can share your screen, you can record it and like have it uploaded to Google Drive, or you can save it on your computer. And the con, of course, with the free version is the 40-minute max. But again, if you have like a business account on Google Meet, again, maybe through your own business or through an employer, it would be longer than that. But this is the free tier version. Moving on to Zoom. We thought that we would talk to you about the free and the pro. So I think a lot of you are familiar with Zoom, especially because you're on it right now. But you can invite up to 100 people. Zoom is obviously one of the best ones right now because especially during sort of a gathering, being able to see everyone on your screen is really lovely. And so this one, you could have up to 49 people on the screen at once, which is a really cool feature. It can be overwhelming, but a lot of people like seeing everyone's faces. And you can record it even on the free version. The support is pretty good and the video quality is good. The only con is the 40-minute max for a free Zoom meeting. So for those of you that haven't experienced this, literally what will happen is if you pass the 40 minutes, it'll just turn off and it'll just close the meeting for everyone. So it's not the best way to end a memorial service. What we did, and what I recommend you do, if you have a larger group of people and you know it might last at least an hour, go for Zoom Pro. And I'm not, of course, paid by Zoom at all to say this. You can invite up to 100 people. You can have as many people on the screen. What's nice is that you can have breakout sessions, and we'll talk about that really quick, breakout rooms. There's social media streaming, which I personally haven't used yet, but it means that you can basically stream it to like Facebook, which I know a lot of people are doing now. You can record the meetings locally or on the cloud. On the cloud for us was really helpful because instead of me having to have the video on my computer and then like put it up on YouTube or put it up somewhere else, like if you're not planning on putting it on a memorial page like we did, having it recorded in the cloud on Zoom, you just take the link that Zoom gives you and you can share that link with other people privately so that they can watch the service on their own after and download it after if you let them. And then of course the meetings can last up to 30 hours, which hopefully I hope no one ever has a 30-hour meeting. But that's why we recommend Zoom Pro. And to be honest, it's really because, and this is why I'm definitely not being paid by Zoom, is that you pay the $20 for the month and then you cancel it. So this would only cost you $20 to do, and that's it. So just as long as you cancel it before the anniversary of that month and the renewal happens, then it only costs you $20. And I would say that it is worth the time and the security, knowing that everything will run smoothly and will not end on you. Step 6 is to invite everyone. So again, lots of different ways you can do this. We used the event pages on Keeper to send the invite via email. However you choose to use it, it can be a text message that has the link. It could be an email that you write yourself and you send it. However it works for you, you can do that. We used Canva. So Canva is a tool, C-A-N-V-A. It's a really easy tool to make like a nice graphic. So if you want to have like something pretty like what you see on the screen, then you could do something like Canva and just send that picture out via email or text message so people can see that. And we recommend to send it out at least 2 days before the service, because you want people to, of course, put it in their calendar, have time to ask you questions, etc. And if you want, if your family is kind of like mine, where, you know, we have some close family, but I don't have everyone in my family's email or phone number. If you're comfortable with this, you can just send it to people and always include a message, please forward to anyone else you feel would appreciate being there. And that just kind of takes the burden off you having to scour and find everyone's phone number. It lets people just easily forward it. Make it personal. So this is my favorite step. This is where you can really do something that is meaningful, that will just add a really nice, meaningful touch. I would like to say though that, you know, gathering as a family and speaking about your loved one is, you know, often more than enough, and it will be so appreciated by everyone. But if you want to do a little more, if you have a little time, if the tech person is, you know, really great at media stuff, then I would say to go that extra step, because again, it's not like this is happening once. And I mean, it is happening once, but this is a memory that you're going to be able to keep, which we don't have really during funerals, unless you're recording someone speaking during a funeral, which is not really standard. The idea is that you're going to have this to keep. And to be honest, I revisit this video that we did for my grandmother pretty often. And that's actually her on the screen with my grandfather and my sister. So what I would like to say is a slideshow is a really easy way to do it. What we did is we had everyone share the images in one central place. So just like you're seeing there, we did it on Keeper on the memorial page. But again, if you're not using a system like Keeper, a link to a Dropbox folder, a link to Google Drive, somewhere that people can just throw everything that they have in one place, so that it's when the person's ready to create the slideshow, it's all available in one folder. But if you have a very patient tech person who's taking care of this, you can also just say, everyone email your stuff to this person and they'll do it. It's not the most efficient way, but whatever works. And I did want to share that we did find some tools for you, of course, that you can use. So if you want more of a desktop version, on Windows, you can Google Wondershare Filmora, and that's free and it works on your computer. If you have a Mac, iMovie has this option, so that comes with every app. And online, if you want to use a tool that's directly in your browser, PhotoSnack is another free tool that works really well. And other ways that you can make it personal is you can show home videos. So what we did is my cousin and I, actually we were lucky enough that my family digitized all of our home videos that were on VHS before, or even on Super 8. I'm not that old, but it was on my mom's side. What we did is we just kind of scoured through the videos and we just took a bunch of short clips from them. Again, this takes a bit of time, so you have to have the time and the skills to do that. But we just extracted 30-second clips from different home videos we found, and we put them all together. And a really important tip is that most of the tools available, I think all the tools that we sent you, that we showed you in the last screen, you can just slot videos in the way you would slot in a picture. So you just drop those video files in, and then it'll just be part of your slideshow. And the last one is my favorite one because it could be so meaningful, and it's probably the simplest way to make it personal, is to consume something they loved. Memorializing a loved one with food. So many cultures use food to memorialize loved ones and to celebrate and to gather and to celebrate culture. So what we did in our case, that's me obviously that you can see, is my grandma loved red wine and she loved Chivas, so which is like a whiskey. So we all had a glass of whiskey and scotch ready, or red wine for those that didn't have that. And we all did a wonderful toast in her honor. And the best way to do this is you would put beforehand, so in the event, so let's say you're doing an event page on Facebook or on Keeper or wherever, you just should put it there. And in the invite saying, we are going to do a toast, we are going to eat a piece of cherry pie, we're going to eat Oreos, whatever it is that really reminds you of your loved one, tell everyone during the invite so that they have it next to them and ready. And it's actually something that we did, that when people first came on as the host, I said, hey, just a reminder, if you don't have your glass of scotch, go grab it now before we get started. And that way you know that everyone has it with you. Last step, do a dry run. So you can see if you start adding some more of these personalized elements, it can just be a lot of moving parts. So you want to make sure a few things. You want to make sure that the speakers are comfortable, they know what they're saying. You want to make sure that the slideshow is running smoothly and that the tech person knows how to use the spotlighting feature and knows how to transition everyone. You also want to check out the timing. Of course, everything will take longer, most likely when you're doing it live. But if you realize that the speakers only wrote like 2 minutes each, and it's going to be a 5-minute service, that's not ideal. So just being able to have a rough estimate of time will be helpful. And again, it just takes away any nerves. And it may seem like overkill, but that extra practice, that extra moment that you take will be absolutely very helpful. Next, we have the actual service itself. So what we did for ours is, and this is a lot of people are doing this, and it's kind of a nice thing. For the most part, you may not be in touch. There may be so many family members that you haven't spoken to before. And, it maybe have been a long time since you've spoken with them. So having that little bit of time for everyone to kind of gather online before it starts is really helpful. So I make it no longer than 30 minutes. I say that because we had it at like 45 minutes to an hour and it felt too long. So I'm telling you this from experience. 30 minutes of people just saying hi, showing a video of the new baby, just kind of, just catching up. It's really nice to do, but you don't want to make it too long because then people will kind of just be waiting. Something that you can absolutely do that we would recommend is, 1, if you're using Zoom, and 2, if you have a good amount of people with you, a large family group, let's say there's over 50 people, use the breakout session. So the host can actually separate participants into different breakout rooms. So you may have, the young kids, you may have the maternal side and the paternal side in different ones. obviously you know your family best how to do that, and just break them out. So that way there's not 50 people trying to speak at the same time, and it just makes it a lot more manageable. And what I wrote there and what I did is, just because I don't like awkward silence, and that's the kind of person I am, is I just had some quick questions ready, like, tell us your favorite memory of Nana, or, who lived with her, or like who went with her to Maryland all the time. Tell us a story around that. Little things to get conversations started in case there's any like silence, essentially. There most likely will not be, but it's something that I felt it was like an extra blanket, so to speak, when I was as the host. Of course, this is a rule of thumb. No matter what you're doing, don't be afraid to mute. Even if someone's not talking, but there's like that slight background noise of someone vacuuming or just rummaging through their kitchen, it may come out so loud. And if the person isn't spotlighted that's speaking, they're going to come up on the screen, and it can be really jarring and frustrating. So as the tech person, always mute people no matter what. And what I really like to do is use the spotlighting feature when someone's talking, even if they're not a speaker, if they're just like sharing a few quick words. The spotlighting feature is where you just click on the three dots. I'm sorry, we don't have a picture of it here, but you just click on the three dots above their picture and you just click spotlight. And it's something that you'll see as the host. And what it does is it just makes sure that everyone can see that person. So they don't have to like look through 50 squares and figure out who's actually speaking. So this is sort of the pre-memorial service. And then during the actual memorial service, it starts with the host. They welcome everyone. They thank everyone for attending. They may say a few words about the person, about the decedent, and then tell everyone quickly the order of service. So today, we're going to hear from this person, and then we're going to move on to this. And then, really important, if you want to do this, which I would recommend, is just say at the end of the service, we will open the floor for anyone else to say a few words. Because if not, people might try to kind of jump in and say something, and you want to kind of run your service the way you planned. And then at the end, absolutely let whoever would like to say a few words do that. A lot of people did that in our case, and it was really, really nice. Something to do that I would recommend is just to quickly announce that you're going to be recording it, so that if someone doesn't want to be on camera, doesn't want their face to be shown at all, they can just take off their camera. And then the host would just introduce the first speaker. The speaker would give their speech. If you have a slideshow, I'll actually show you this after. The slideshow could run in the background while the person is talking. The host then comes back, says thank you, introduces speaker two. Speaker two says their eulogy, says their speech. The slideshow continues to play. And then after speaker two, the host should open up the floor. And when it's sort of, sometimes it could be challenged, but as the host, once you see that the time is kind of getting there and it's starting to feel long, close the service and say, we're going to take one more question or whatever it may be. But of course, you're family, so you can go as long as you want. And then that would be the end of the service. And then as part of the end of the service, this is, ending something in a proper way is really wonderful. So of course, you thank everyone. This is where we did our personalized group action, where we all made a toast with our wine and our whiskey. And so it's a really nice way to end it. So that's when we did it. And if you do have an online memorial page or somewhere where people are sharing photos or stories, put a link to it in the chat right away. And make sure that you tell people it's there, because there's so many other stories, there's so many other photos that people there are going to remember they have. And it's just so nice to get those. So just remind people that they can always go back to this page. and add a link in the chat so they can get to it. And of course, you can also tell them that if you do want to send this video to anyone who could not attend, this is how you can go ahead and look at the video again. So that's again why it's a helpful way to have some type of an online platform where that can all be stored and then shared. So I actually want to show you really quick a quick section, a quick video I wanted to show you how you can use Zoom to have a slideshow and a speaker talking at the same time. So you'll see there's going to be Audrey speaking, and then you'll notice that we put the slideshow on, we did a share screen, and then she was spotlighted. So just take a look at this for a moment.
In her love and never let anyone silence her word or her spirit. She strived to raise her children and her grandchildren with this strength. Nana always pointed out the uniqueness in each of us, and she embraced it. She would encourage us to find our passion in life and never let us settle for anything other than what she knew we deserved. She encouraged us to speak up and be strong, and she had the strongest voice of them all.
And then I'm just going to skip ahead and show you, sorry, I'm just going to kind of scroll through this really quick. I'm going to show you just how we had the video embedded in there. So you'll see it was really easy. So let me just find the right time just to show you. Actually, it's also my favorite video, so I'm choosing to show you all this for a reason.
Right. That'll be so funny here.
It's my grandmother yelling in French, so don't worry about that. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you how you can easily add videos directly in the slideshow super easily. So thank you all. That was my talk. I hope it wasn't too much information. I'm a very detail-oriented person, and having all those details was super helpful to me when I did the service. And just while it's on the screen here, and this is going to be in the handout as well. If you do want to try out Keeper, we do have a coupon code available for Before I Die. It's going to be up until December. So please feel free to use it and give Keeper a try, and you can send us a message if you have any questions. And I'm going to stop sharing, but we can move on to questions if we have a few minutes, Gail. Yeah?
Yep, we do.
Awesome.
And in fact, Stephanie's been putting them in the chat.
Cool. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie's our marketing communications manager, so everyone stay ahead of Stephanie.
So Bruno George asked in the Q&A, some of us were talking in the Death Cafe that was just before this session about the peculiar invisibility of COVID-19 deaths in the US. There seems to have been no national paroxysm of grief, which is what I was anticipating when we watched this all unfold in Italy. Do you know of online ways to replicate the practice of the funeral cortege? You know, like the parade through town, basically, where strangers see and acknowledge the death. Any thoughts about that?
Wow. I mean, that's a great question. What we did in my family situation is during the actual burial, and typically this is how most cemeteries are operating right now, is that there can be a few family members present. Like if the family members are going to be pallbearers, for example. So what we did is we had one family member, again, go on Zoom, send us all the invite, and we were actually all present to watch her being buried at the cemetery. And that was really important to us to be able to see that and be there and hear the words and hear the prayers. So I completely agree with you, Bruno, that death is totally invisible, even though so many people are dying left, right, and center. So this just goes back to the beginning where even though we can't follow the rituals that we have today, that most of us follow that are so helpful towards the grief process, we have the technology, you know, we are still so connected, and we have so many ways that we can create something ourselves. We're in this era where we're starting to create our own rituals, and we need to create them, especially if we're becoming more secular. We don't have as many religious practices some of us might follow. Make your own rituals and make them meaningful.
The next question was from Lori Vanderveld. Did you get any resistance to the idea of a rehearsal funeral from the speakers, maybe, or even how would this work if clergy is involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. And we didn't really talk about, so everything we kind of talked about was more of a DIY family version of this. But to say, if you are working with an event planner, like a funeral director who may do this, if you're working with a clergy member, they will typically always say that we're going to do a dry run. And they want to do it for themselves. And they also want to make sure that someone who's speaking doesn't just not know what to do on Zoom. So no, to answer your question, Lori, we didn't get any pushback. Some people were like, oh, I'm kind of busy, but it's like, everyone kind of wants to be comfortable, especially when it's a new thing that they're doing. If they've never used Zoom as a presenter before, they're going to want to do it. So you can tell them, you know, it's more for you so that you're more comfortable and more at ease. And there's definitely a way to talk someone through that.
Yeah. And Felicia Barlow Clar, C-L-A-R. She says, fantastic. As a producer of Celebrations of Life, I'm glad to know about Keeper. Yay. Very succinct tool. And Pat Dalpe says this was very helpful. And Felicia also says, my condolences for your recent loss, Mandy.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Stephanie just re-added the PDF if you do want to download it. Again, it's obviously a free download. If there's any other questions you have, let us know. And also Keeper does work for celebrants and death doulas. Like you can use this system as a business doing this for families. So if it's a helpful tool during this time, please use it. More and more families are doing virtual memorials right now. Don't let your family, don't let anyone mourn alone. That's what I want to say with that.
That's right. I mean, even though physically we can't be together, we can emotionally come together using tools like this, like Zoom and Skype. And Mandy, great presentation. Thank you so much. And so glad to have you involved with the festival. And I hope we'll see you at some other sessions because we've got some great stuff lined up. And in fact, our next session, which will be coming up at 3 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time, so in a half an hour, is raising the bar on our funeral traditions with Kyle Tevlin. She started a company called I Want a Fun Funeral. And she'll have some really great information for you, again, about putting the fun in funeral planning, but also making it meaningful and memorable and creative and emotionally satisfying. So take a break, bio break time. And thank you again, Mandy. And I hope we'll see most of you participants in the next session.